Hello, everybody, and welcome to Seeds of Liberty podcast, episode 36. So we're going to go with Jeremy with the BIPCOT No-Gov license.
Yes, the Seeds of Liberty podcast is covered by the BIPCOT No-Gov license. This allows for reuse by anyone except for governments and the agents thereof. You can find out more information about this at bipcot.org.
So today we have Carlos Morales, voluntarist anarchist, child protective services whistleblower. He's the author of Legally Kidnapped, The Case Against Child Protective Services. You could find his work through legallykidnapped.net. He's got a podcast called Libertarian Atheist Podcast. It's on Facebook. It's just Libertarian Atheist. And he's also a Facebook page, Child Protective Services Victim Support. You can find some more help there. If you have any problems with C.P.S. directly, please seek him out. So you can also find him on Twitter at Carlos Morales TC on Twitter. So Carlos, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Been hearing a lot about you for a while. I was glad to have a chance to chat with you at Liberty Fest. That was pretty cool. You're a tough guy to get a hold of. I imagine you're a pretty busy guy. Everybody wants a piece of the C.P.S. whistleblowers. There's not too many of them out there, I assume, right?
As far as Child Protective Services whistleblowers are concerned, apparently prior to me there were some, though they were all anonymous, which honestly, if you're going to come out as a government whistleblower and call yourself anonymous, you could literally be saying anything. And whenever I saw some of the reports they would bring up, like stating that C.P.S. investigators are physically handed cash for every kid, that's when I knew they were full of shit. Because that's not how bureaucracies actually work. To distribute responsibility so that no one ever feels guilt. It's the same reason why we have kids in Nevada who are droning people, where they have 3 different people running one drone that is far away from other individuals, so no one actually has to feel the resentment and the guilt from what is occurring. So as far as I know for right now, I am the only Child Protective Services whistleblower in the history of the agency, at least one who is vocal and puts my face out to the point where, well, let's just say I probably won't ever be able to do social work in the normal governmental sense again, although I'm not really, jumping at the gun to do so, namely because of the things that I discovered after working for them.
Yeah. So are you like the Edward Snowden of CPS?
I'm not nearly that sexy. You cannot get laid like Edward Snowden talking about CPS. And the thing about Edward Snowden is there's a lot of money behind killing him, right? Because you have multiple government organizations federally and everything else. What I'm stating is attacking a very specific system, family court system, which in Child Protective Services is federally backed as well as state backed. So there's obviously certain things that can go against them. But, I'm not attacking a whole amount of corporations or anything else. Or at least this is how I'm justifying it, to not have to fear my inevitable demise, hopefully not within the next 4 years. Hoping to live a little bit longer than that, but I decided to push myself forward against the agency with my face out there because I decided that I needed to do that in order to subsume some of the guilt for what I had done.
Well,
and
here's the thing:
being a voice behind it.
Here's the thing: if they kill you, they only emblazon your story. They only.
Yeah,
they only...
I don't. I'm not. If you heard the name of the podcast, Libertarian Atheist Podcast, obviously I'm not a big fan of martyrdom. So either way, I'd rather not die.
I know, but what I'm saying is regardless of what happens now, your message is out and what you've said has been said. It can't go anywhere. It's on the internet. It's there forever.
So like, what Dave is saying is you're the Jesus of CPS.
No. What I'm saying is before when.
What's also on the internet right now is countless more people watching cats with bread around their neck. So it's not sense to say I'm also.
Of course, but it's if they kill if they kill Edward Snowden, more people are going to wake up.
Well, Nancy Schaefer may or may not have been killed by the United States government. She was, oh my God, it's weird. I can't remember if senator or congressman. I'm like 99% sure it's the congressman though, who was the first person actually within the government to really come vocally against Child Protective Services, bringing up the financial incentives that have led to the over 400,000 children right now who are in Child Protective supposed care, which is really not care whatsoever as of now. So And she died in a supposed murder-suicide with her husband at the age of something of 60 or 70 years old, when no one before that knew of any kind of domestic violence or anything else. Then poof, suddenly she's dead. So there is a fear there, and I think that is real. I work with the Free State Project in New Hampshire, well-armed individuals, and it's a pretty liberty-minded community. I would tell anyone, if you're going to be coming out against the government in the way that I have, and I know other individuals have, it's important to have a strong community around you who can back you. Like on my phone right now, I have like 3 different attorneys I know within 20 miles just in case shit goes down. So it's important to have those strengthening mechanisms.
Well, I mean, there's always that fear of speaking out that you could get suicided. I mean, it happens or get disappeared.
Yeah, so I try to bring up constantly how fucking happy I am instead.
Yeah.
Suicide. I'm really against suicide, and I've done too much ecstasy to kill myself. So not jumping on that gun anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I get the point Dave was trying to make, but I mean, obviously, Snowden carries, I guess, much more weight. And too many people are still blinded by C.P.S. That's the thing. I think enough people were disenfranchised with some part of the state apparatus as a whole that when Snowden came out and said what he said, it's like affected enough people. With C.P.S., there's still plenty of people that think.
Like let's be honest here, right? Who does C.P.S. Well, you might not know, right? Like C.P.S. mostly affects people who are poor, a lot of them who are already getting things like government handouts and everything else. So they're generally going after minorities. 40% of individuals who are within foster homes right now are African American, even though they only make up 10% of the population. They go after a whole ransack of illegal immigrants and individuals who are Mexican American who are also impoverished. When I was working for C.P.S. within San Antonio, Texas, even though I think we may have just been a majority Mexican, maybe like 51%, but I don't think it's that much. I only saw Mexicans the entire time I was working, or black people. I rarely ever saw whites. So they go after those without a voice as it is right now. They generally going after those, some of them are illiterate and things like that, because they're not able to protect themselves. And because they have the government in their life for such a large period of time, they're used to people like investigators coming into their home and just asking them a whimsical amount of questions. Mm-hmm. So what Edward Snowden brought up was that people who also shop at Urban Outfitters also are getting fucked over by the government, right? Mm-hmm. They are also going after, the normal college students, the professors, the intellectuals, the people who run Tumblr. And so it was more effective because it was going after their pocketbook in that sense. But in all honesty, Edward Snowden was just telling us all within the libertarian realm what we already knew. They're recording your fucking phone calls. You should be encrypting your data. You should be trying to get outside of the Federal Reserve by maybe using Bitcoin and, I don't know, Airbit's wallet or something that's, that's encrypted even more. So that you can kind of get out of there. But, we all have a message, we all have a strength. And Edward Snowden's was one of the strongest voices we've had of our generation. And I would never put myself on that level. I just think I'm someone who was an anarchist before he started working for C.P.S., saw what C.P.S. was doing, and was more of an anarchist whenever he left. And after that, I was just like, you know what? This is not the world for me. I am here to not to harm them, so I must quit Child Protective Services, and I must become vocal against them no matter what occurs to me. Now, I was in a specific position whereby I did not have children, and I was not married at the time whenever I came out against C.P.S., so I was less of a threat. You come out against the cops, they'll kill you. You come out against C.P.S., they'll come after your kids, because they can't really come after you, right? Because that's not within their power. I don't have children within the... Well, I don't have children at all, but I also do not have kids in the United States. So. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm
Well, you never know. You always have to say, I don't have children as far as I know.
You get that.
I guess. I don't know what you're doing with kids on Sundays, but protection, my friend. Now,
no, man, I'm I raw dog, man. No way.
Okay.
All right.
We'll check in on the mortality level a little bit later as far as STD is concerned. But yeah, as far as I know right now, I have no children. And so you don't really have much of an enemy or person to necessarily go after. And as far as I can tell right now, broken some laws in regards to like talking about a former agency, but not enough to where it's still not kind of murky. Like if I was going to have charges pressed against me, it would be kind of difficult because I don't really release individual victims' names. I'll talk about cases, but I don't talk about their names as a whole. I do not talk about, for instance, the former workers who went, the people who had been my supervisors or anything else. I don't mention their names, so I'm still kind of outside of it. So I don't know. I don't really know what the legal status I am right now, but no charges have been pressed yet.
So I have a quick question. So as an anarchist like yourself, is this one of the first, like, if you could just abolish a federal program right now off the top of your head, would this be close to the top for you? Do you think it's that big of an issue?
It's interesting, right? Because Child Protective Services works hand in hand with the Drug Enforcement Agency. So I still think I would say DEA, right? Because
I would say IRS, but that's just me.
So, so as far as being able to get rid of one agency, I could play this game all day. It's like, oh, Homeland Security, DEA. I'm not sure, although to be quite honest, I don't have a whole lot of hope that any of these agencies are going to be going away anytime soon. Were you guys watching the fall of Western civilization, i.e., the Democratic debates recently?
No, I try to avoid those.
Pandering
Oh
to the
God.
useful idiots.
It's terrible because I actually watch them, and it's just kind of for shits and giggles. And then I'll talk to my friends, and I do a comedic breakdown of every single one of their positions. They enjoy it, and I take the sacrifice of actually watching the talk. Though I will say I have doubts as far as one of these agencies necessarily just kind of going away. I think the whole thing will kind of have to collapse. Although I'm not optimistic to the point where I think that even if the dollar collapses within the next 20 years, we'll have anarchy, because the culture as a whole has not shifted to the mindset that individuals should be able to voluntarily choose what to do with their body and what they should be able to do with their labor afterwards. So I'm not hopeful as far as the anarchist route is concerned. I am an anarchist, obviously, right? Though I don't know what we're seeing forward. Though to be fair, 20 years ago, no one thought that most people would be okay with homosexuals and atheists, and now that's kind of becoming a thing, and that most people are actually not racist, which is totally true. Most people are not racist, which is why we have the trigger-happy college campuses, because they're so used to being able to feel victimized that now they're having to look into microaggressions to actually find structural racism rather than just people calling one another niggers in front of their face like they were in the 1960s.
Yeah.
So I think things are getting better. It's just academia, intellectuals who are funded by the state and the state itself are trying to make everything look worse so that we feel as if we need to be more and more controlled.
Sure.
When I talked to you at Liberty Fest, one of the things that really affected me was how you were saying that you have PTSD as a result of your experience there. And I never realized how, profound your experience was until you said that. I was going to say, were you in the military? But no, you said just from working there, you got... And it makes me wonder about everyone else who worked there, if, they had a similar experience.
It was kind of like the deep sadness of troops, right? So here's a weird fact: the majority of the people who kill themselves have higher IQs than normal, right? Which means that the people who are killing themselves within the military right now tend to be the smarter people who actually feel guilt because they recognize what they're doing is wrong. It's one of the biggest tragedies of the amount of soldiers who are dying right now and the amount of soldiers who are battling PTSD who are getting no help to deal with the fact. Because those are the people who are actually might be the most helpful, because in order to have PTSD, you actually have to subsume or feel inside of your own consciousness, inside of your out of the metaphysical soul, that what you did was wrong. So the fact of the matter was that, when you're in the military, generally when you're talking to your friends and everything else, you don't mention things like post-traumatic stress disorder. I think the events that people saw and the things they had to be a part of obviously took a toll on them. It's going to cause a trauma whether they recognize it subconsciously or consciously. I didn't kind of take it inside me that what had occurred at first was, I knew it was traumatic, but I didn't quite recognize how much it was kind of taking a part of every single part of me. But, when you have an 8-year-old pull a gun on you, when you talk to two children after their mother had just been shot in front of them by their stepdad, when you're taking children out of their home, throwing them in the back of their car right after you just saw their house filled with piles of children's shit, which was being used to hide drugs, right? When you when you see another kid who's just been taken out of a house because his mother was smoking marijuana, and now that kid is on 7 different psychotropic drugs, because the foster home actually has an incentive to stick children on psychotropic drugs, which is the 21st century form of abuse. And when you see all that, say, in like a month, you might be a little bit mentally scarred. I kind of went into this, the first time I'd ever really spoken about this was an article I wrote called How MDMA Cured My Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. Now, cured is too strong of a word, although it's not much of a hit article if you say how it kind of helped out my PTSD. But MDMA was incredibly helpful. Although, to be fair, I did MDMA with a very caring, wonderful human being who kind of carried me through the therapeutic process of dealing with it. Because the benefits of MDMA, also known as street drug-wise ecstasy, although I had a Molly form, it was tested as pure MDMA, no speed, was the fact that there's all these filters that we stick around ourselves to hide ourselves from not only to others but ourselves, because many of the times that we're lying as individuals, it's us trying to hide the person that we are because we don't actually love or like ourselves. We're trying to display an image of a person that we're actually not. So ecstasy kind of allowed me to break through those filters and kind of break down the emotional impact that those events occurred. Not only then, but since becoming a whistleblower, since services victim support, and getting dozens and dozens of emails a day from people who are being affected by the agency and people who have been helped by the work that I've done, that leaves it a fucking emotional toll on an individual that most individuals throughout history haven't necessarily had to deal with in that certain way. And so the PTSD is real, and I hope the people that I worked with get some help on there. But I got to tell you, a lot of the people that I worked with were fucking dumb as shit, and I'm not sure how much they're really feeling the effects of it.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, well, first of all, I read that article. I thought that was a great article. That it was actually just trying to like relive your experiences through your writing almost brought me to tears reading it. It was a very powerful article, I must say. I was a big fan of that one. Yeah. But I mean, the fact that you were so open about, I try to do that whenever I do write, but I never feel when I see other people do it, it just impresses me. But I was actually going to ask, but you kind of hinted at it with, the rest of your, former colleagues being a little on the dumb side. I know you had mentioned the fact that you're pretty much the only known whistleblower. But as far as like a turnover rate, is there like a high turnover rate at least?
Yeah, 50% quits within 1 year, as far as I recall. Though that's not a formal statistic. That was one given to me by a supervisor. So I don't quote it in the book or anything because I can't back it. But that was what I heard, at least within the San Antonio agency that I was working at.
Okay.
Which is good, right? It's good. It's a good.
Well, yeah, no, it is. But that's what I was going to say, because even though people, I mean, you were saying you would assume at least more people would actually have the trauma and maybe not recognize it, but at least have it that you had. But if at least there's a turnover ratio, I guess we can at least have a silver lining there and say, well, yeah, at least hopefully some of them are getting affected enough to let it bother them and say no.
So, well, no, here's the thing, right? Like, think about the French Revolution, right? Like, the French Revolution to me is, or Occupy, is similar to me. Mm-hmm. It's frustration without an ethos. It's frustration without first principles to be able to discover or logical framework to understand what the problem is. All you see is shit's fucked up, therefore we need more government money, which is how, some people I fucking laugh my ass off. There's been some like social workers who are called whistleblowers by the media, and all they're saying is that we need to work less and we need more money. Like, that's always their fucking argument. And I remember covering the Vermont case where these 2 kids died due to the hands of C.P.S. And the social service people were saying, like, oh, there's whistleblowers. I looked it up and I was like, no, they're not whistleblowers. They're bureaucrats. All they say is they're overworked and they don't have enough money. Well, guess what? Due to communist price mechanisms, you'll always think that because we have no value or way to be able to attribute the value that is deserving of your work, right? So with these people who become frustrated and everything, I've heard that, their pain supposedly, but most of them just say like, oh, well, we just needed to be more efficient. We needed to just be more like that. But without the first principles, acknowledging the importance of the non-aggression principle, acknowledging the destructive power of coercion, the destructive power of a monopolistic coercive agency, where you, since public school, it's been implemented within your mind that you need this paternalistic, maternalistic, coercive power in your life on a constant basis. It goes nowhere. So there's people who are frustrated, but they're frustrated and peddling towards nothingness, which again, follow Western civilization, Bernie Sanders campaign 2016.
What is that? Righteous indignation? Is that what that's called?
Yeah, righteous indignation.
Yeah, that's. I think that's. I like to. I like to kind of analogize. I know I just made that up, but make an analogy of.
We use the term incentivizes a lot. That's not a fucking word, but libertarians use it all the goddamn time.
Incentivizes.
To be incentivized. I use it all the time. I always get checked on spell check. I'm like, motherfucker, that's still not a word.
I use aggressed all the time, and I'm told that's not a word either.
I type initiation on my phone.
If it says it's not a word, all right, just add to the dictionary. That's what I do.
Yeah, but
don't bother me anymore. It's part of the dictionary now.
There's words like irregardless, which are now in the dictionary, which says see regardless. I'm like, motherfucker, don't put another syllable when it's unnecessary.
That one bothers me.
For some reason, my phone won't do initiation. I even saved it. It will not save because I tend to type the initiation of force a lot, and that it never works out on my phone. But anyways, I kind of like to put these useful idiots, these Marxists, these cultural Marxists, I really don't know what to call them. They're man children or grown childs. I really don't know any other way to explain it.
It's been a whole movement towards the infantilization of adults within America. And we really saw it with the stranger danger generation in the late 80s, early 90s, where we were supposed to always be afraid of all the adults around us except for the cops. And what is the inevitable result of the stranger danger generation? It's the trigger-happy, victimized culture that we see in places like Yale right now, where, again, they're needing a safe space from all the scary strangers. And they're so far away from any actual danger within their own life that they recognize that they have to make up the enemies so that they can be protected by the state yet again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, whenever I run into one of these people, I always say, when's the last time you were physically trembling and worried to death when you were going to eat your next meal? Like, so if you're not at that level, then please shut up. Like, you took a shower this week.
They could say that about us. I mean, they could, right? Like, we bring up the terribleness of the state and everything else, right? And then they can say, well, how
yes,
hard
but something being forced upon you versus you trying to force something on someone else is completely different.
100% acknowledge that. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of just kind of the ways of discussing. Just discussing.
But I like to compare them to like a loaded gun that's had its sights ripped off, and the guy holding the gun just got bit by a bee, and they're just like, I want to shoot something because I got bit and this isn't fair, or stung by a bee. They make no sense.
I mean, it makes sense whenever grammar, logic, and rhetoric were never taught to you or implemented to you as a child, where all of the knowledge that you absorbed wasn't knowledge, but it was words from authoritarians who you were supposed to respect under the initiation of force, right? So we have an entire generation of individuals who actually do not know how to think, but only to regurgitate, which is proof when I talk to some people and I realize they are literally telling me what they heard on CNN, and they think they're the smartest person in the fucking room.
It's hilarious.
Might as well be talking to Wolf Blizzard's script right now. Or a fucking crazy person.
I might as well be talking to Wolf Blitzer's script. That is great.
I am always on a brink of nihilism on a constant basis, to be quite honest.
Dave and you would get along famously. Dave's a closet nihilist, and he just won't admit it.
Oh me, the
But,
jabs.
the only thing I was gonna say is I totally agree with what you say, except I would push back a little. It's not just one generation; there's generation upon generation upon generation of people that have that line of thought, or lack of line of thought, should I say?
Yeah, but
Because
it's kind of the pussification though of
oh
this
no,
generation.
it's definitely gotten worse since the
Yeah,
since
like
the whole
I would
participation
say,
trophies and all that bullshit. I mean, it's definitely gotten worse. But
I mean, how much of our population actually knows how to hunt? I'm thinking it has to be less than 1%, right? Like
uh,
that's bad.
I'd give it more, but definitely not much. Only because like people like where Dave lives in Bama, there's a lot of people, plenty of people that still hunt there. Up and down the Midwest,
Yeah.
plenty of people. Where I live, just outside the city, in New York, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's probably less than 1% of hunters, and the ones that are if it spikes above that, it's when the idiots have to hire outside hunters to come take care of the deer population out on the east end of the island because they won't let people just hunt on their own. Even the ones who want to, they're not willing to go through the permits and only deal with a certain number and all this crap. They actually hire outside hunters to come in and pay them money to take the deer population
Yeah.
down, and instead of letting people do it on their
Yeah,
own.
yeah, they sniper it. So yeah, this is a conversation that I've had with a few people because when early in life I boxed and did Muay Thai kickboxing a lot, and then I got fat, and then I stopped being fat and started doing Muay Thai kickboxing and boxing again, and I would have these conversations with like libertarians and for like, oh, I don't know about this competition thing, or they'd be like, I don't know about this physical force thing. I'm like, self-defense is part of intellectual self-defense. I think you should be able to physically defend yourself because also if you're going to walk around with a gun, you should also know how to walk around knowing how to handle a situation without actually having to blow someone's fucking head off. I think there's a certain sense of autonomy that you get from being able to physically protect yourself as a man or as a woman, although I think it really presses towards men because of the testosterone drive, that I see a lot of individuals, some of them even libertarians, who yell at people in their face. And I think part of it is because they want to prove their masculinity, but they've never had a healthy avenue to do it. And I think it's sad that so few men have actually taken to trying some of these things. And then there's, of course, the weak progressive narrative, which is highlighted within the media and public education, that those who actually protect themselves, those who do things like boxing or sports, are just dumb bros who are intellectually inferior, when in fact I do not acknowledge that that is true. I have not seen that to be the case. And I think it's taking something from yourself, because once you have been in this situation, like in boxing or in my kickboxing or judo or something, where you've shown yourself to be able to physically take care of yourself, when you're in like a bar fight situation or in another situation, say even with a cop or an authority figure, you have been in that situation before. You've been in the fight or flight mode before. So that if you're in a case where you've been boxing or doing judo or Muay Thai kickboxing or something else like that, where you've been in situations which you are in a fight or flight type of mode, you are now able to understand the situation and not just freak the fuck out in cases where, say, a cop is hassling you or some kind of hoodlum or something like that is hassling you. When you have that sense of autonomy towards yourself because you've already been in that situation, you're not trying to desperately prove yourself through physical means when you don't have to. And so that's why I think it's good for libertarians and atheists and free thinkers to try to get into things like martial arts, to strengthen their own sense of individual autonomy.
Yeah, the idea of intellectual self-defense, that's actually the first time I heard that term. That's pretty cool. I like it. And it's so true, because to me, voluntarism is a philosophy that's entirely consistent, whereas, any kind of form of statism, whether it's communism, socialism, right, democracy, whatever, is inherently contradictory and cannot be logically defended, right? So so the idea of being an independently minded person, standing up for your principles and being able to defend yourself, doesn't matter how many people are in the room, although I guess they can outshout you, which they often do with emotion.
Well, we have
But,
we're basically using logic kung fu, right? Like, how strong is your logic kung fu? And the main thing is see if they can define their words. A lot of times, whenever you start getting people to define their terms, they get very, very frustrated because they realize
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
was messing with an
then
ANCOM a few days ago, and I was like, "Can you just
it's the
define a
word.
few things?" And he was like, you just hate what? Explain to me why all ANCAPs are white." Blah blah blah. It's like, can you please just? Do you want to have a discussion, or do you just want to yell shit at me?
To tell him to message me, I'm Jewish, Black, Taino Indian, and Spanish. So all of the above. Tell him to go neck first, though.
But no, no.
So
To your first point, you said that liberals are like wanting to paint everybody that carries a gun or whatever for self defense as like an evil person, and they honestly do. They would much rather people be sacrificed. And just to prove the state's necessity than like someone killing like an armed robber that just happened to be in a bank. They would much rather the people in the robbing the bank kill a bunch of people, get away, than the cops find them and enact state justice versus the individual doing it, because that proves that the state really isn't necessary. But like
yeah.
like I
And no
carry I
matter,
carry a
no matter what happens, they will always say there needs more government.
Oh, of course. Oh, it's because it wasn't funded enough. But I carry a gun everywhere I go. If I go get fast food and go straight back to the house, I carry a gun. Call me a nut, call me whatever you want. But the last thing I ever want to do in my life is pull that trigger on another human being ever. So
Yeah.
I think I carry that sentiment. I think a lot. I think the large, vast majority of people that carry day to day never want to. I don't even want to touch my gun when I'm out in public. I don't even want to. I forget that it's there most of the time. So
Open carry or-
no, I never advise. I never advise open carry ever, ever. Like it's like
Yeah.
this. If you can hide a weapon from a potential enemy, you always pick that choice. That is self defense
Well,
101.
it's a mixture thing, right? Like, so here's the thing. So when it comes to state laws and everything, the only reason I'm kind of mixed is like, if you're in a physical situation with another person who's looking to fight and you have an open carried weapon, then they know in their mind, oh, probably shouldn't fuck with the situation. If you have to unsheath your weapon, then you're already in a situation where now you have to be holding it in front of their face, because if you just kind of open up your weapon to show your weapon, you can actually get legally in trouble for that. So it's kind of
Well, yeah,
weird
you can get
as far as like,
brandishing.
the ethos says. Yeah, brandishing. Excuse me. Not unsheathing. We're not dealing with swords here. But
It'd be a lot cooler if we were though.
How dare you show me a blade? I challenge you to a duel.
but I think that's my Puerto Rican background. But man, I feel fucking at home with a good knife. I'm like, that's my zone right there. I'm like, yes, I get the physical part. I can run straight up to you. But yeah,
I will
I'm
pick a
not
knife over a gun in a lot of scenarios. Almost
15 feet. Yes.
Yes.
Right there is your best bet.
yeah, almost every scenario I would prefer a knife, unless we have an active shooter scenario.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna want a gun, obviously.
And it'd be cool though to run up to an active shooter and just stab him right in the skull. But we all have. But yeah. Anyway, so that's a side tangent. And outside of shooting people in the head or kicking them in the head, I think I've kind of gotten to the point that we were kind of talking about earlier, which is just essentially, it's about intellectual self-defense and protecting yourself from terrible ideas, not by doing it by trying to keep the state by protecting you from those ideas, but being able to logically deduct whether or not what they're stating is factual and moving forward, and being able to dictate or know to the rhetoric and be able to explain to the other person, these are the reasons why you're wrong, maybe these are the reasons why you're right, and these are the ways we can connect right then and there. And we do not need the state to do that, but every single part of public education and university education, which are almost pretty much work synergistically together, especially if Bernie Sanders has his way, is meant to do that. It's meant to take away individual autonomy and locus of control from the individual and onto a paternalistic higher authority, whether that be God, government, or abusive parent.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to deal with that a little too close to home. I mean, I deal with it every day when I interact with most statists, but I have to deal with it very close to home because I have a situation with my wife who was brought up not only in the system but by a cop So getting through to her is a lot harder than it is getting through to some other people. But it's true that it's ingrained. It really is from a very young age that you can't possibly function without something or somebody above you making sure that what you're doing is right. And it's unfortunate because like I said, I dealt with it. I have people all the time that want to do. I base my life on contracts. I've done that even before I realized that I was an anarchist. That's just the way I kind of operated. And I never needed a legal contract or anything like that. I'm like, which private contract? Write out a contract. You want it legal? Okay, we'll go get it notarized. It's good. It's my word. You have a problem with that? Or should I not trust you? Is that what you're trying to tell me? But so many people are they're so afraid of thinking for themselves in any situation. And I mean, intellectual self-defense for us is not very hard against them because they're not really fighting with much, unfortunately. Although I was just gonna say,
yeah, it goes from intellectual self-defense to ballet, right? Because because most of us have the grammar and logic part. Like we understand, we tell them to find their terms, and we can find the logic to do it from there. It's the rhetoric, that stem of the trivium, that's always can be the most difficult part, especially when it's so hard to remember a time where we believe the bullshit that they are espousing. Like you're looking at their face, and you're going, "How are you this stupid? Wait, I'm not supposed to mental words, but how are you this dumb?" Like, it's just, you sure? And it's hard. It's hard out there for a motherfucking anarchist.
It is.
It can be difficult.
Yeah. I had someone the other day go, "Who's going to build the roads?" And I was just like, I can't even conceptualize where you're coming from. Like that was so 2 years ago for me. Like, I can't even put myself in your shoes.
And he was probably very serious when he asked you that, right?
Yes, yeah. Who's gonna build the roads? It's like, and of course, like here's the thing: is
it's like a mic drop. All right, you see, you didn't think about that one, Dave.
Oh yeah. Holy shit! I've only been doing a podcast for close to a year, and I'm pretty logically sound. Holy shit! I've never thought about the damn roads. We need to enslave everyone to pay for the damn roads.
That was off your radar, Dave.
It was just I didn't think about it.
So yeah, you're certainly right. So I did atheist kind of activism for 6 years before I even delved speaking of liberty really much on a public framework, right? So publicly, right? And what was always hilarious is every single time I talked to any single religious person, they would always assume whatever argument they just brought to me, they thought of, like out of nowhere. Oh yeah? Well then who created the universe? Like, really? Best bet? Who created God? I mean, this was, fuck, man. Like, do you not look anything up? Well, who started evolution? Well, who created... It always goes back to the first cause principle every single time.
So, are you one of the anarchists, or not anarchists, but atheists that say, like, there is no God? Or are you one of the people that says, I find no evidence of a God?
Okay, so you're asking me whether I'm a Gnostic atheist or agnostic atheist.
Yes, exactly.
And yes, and depends on the God. The Christian Abrahamic one, I am a Gnostic atheist. There was absolutely, not only is there no proof, it's completely self-contradictory and was made up by a bunch of illiterate people who liked fucking kids. So, pretty Gnostic on the Abrahamic.
Well, I
There's the
mean...
bumper for the show this week.
Well, there wasn't that many people around, so at a certain point, I guess you had to just stick your dick in anything and hope for the best.
Again, I think we're gonna have to disagree. So
no, I was being facetious.
For my friend. Here's the thing: is that the vast majority of definitions of gods which have been presented to me either are inner contradictory or there's already a definition for them. Well, God is the universe. Well, the universe is the universe, bitch. A equals A. Come on, axiomatic. We've done this before. We've done this. Check Rand out. Or God is the ether, or God is love. Again, you're just recalibrating the definition, and you're broadening it because science is answering more and more questions. It seems that the definition of God gets more and more generic and less defined, the more and more science is able to elaborate upon our own existence and our own existence within the universe. So, God in the gaps is generally the term for it. So,
I think most religion was used more of an operating system for a culture than anything. I Outside of that, I really don't buy into the other stuff about it. I mean, I say it's like an operating system for a culture or a coping mechanism with death. Either way, I accept that's how I define religion. But I'm not one of these people that will get up there and say there is no God or there is a God. Like, I don't know, you don't know. Quit pretending like you do. That's kind of where I'm at on everything.
Okay, we're gonna have to do this.
So
this should be fun. I accept all challengers.
Well, no, it's not a matter of challengers. You don't actively believe in a God right now, though?
I would say no.
Then you're an atheist. You're an agnostic atheist. Atheism and agnosticism are not two separate things. I mean, are not contradictory to one another. You can essentially think of agnosticism means knowledge. A means lack of. So lack of knowledge. Atheism is a statement of belief at the time. Theism means belief in a God or a religion. A, again, no. So you're either, if you're an agnostic who is actively believing in a God, then you're an agnostic theist. If you're an agnostic who's not actively believing in a God, then you're an agnostic atheist. In either case, you're still not kind of working against it. Now, on the topic of whether or not it's right to discuss with other individuals whether or not there is a God, I think it's a sense of who do you want to be in the, say, 40,000 spins we have on this floating concrete rock that's shooting around as, a lighted star. And for me, it's, do I want to live a life of virtue and integrity in which I'm going to try my best to define my own terms and live a sovereign life? Well, yes. And I hope that for other individuals as well, which is why I try to remove faith-based thinking from my life. Faith-based thinking being believing in something in spite of or in contradiction to reason and evidence, which is the very basis of religion. Which, again, that's how religion and statism are one and the same. Both demand a form of or a lack of thinking and a belief in an authority who tells you what is right and wrong without any proof, and that authority always acts in contradiction to the principles which it tells you you have to live by, which is why they do the Libertarian Atheist podcast, because I believe they are one in the same, and it's the way we're going to be able to move forward. Because to be quite honest,
I agree with that sentiment.
I don't think I want to live necessarily in Lou Rockwell's Catholic anarchist paradise. That just doesn't seem like the anarchy I really want to be hanging out in, right? So the culture matters and the thought process matters, and that's how we're going to push forward.
Well, that's why I laugh at. That's why I laugh at atheists that still want a state. I'm just like, you do realize every argument against belief in a deity or a theism can be used exactly the same way with a few words changed for the state. Like, did you come to believe in God in a rational manner? No. Did you come to believe in the state in a rational manner? No.
Well, yeah, I did this one. It was it's called you were raised in a cult, exposing the religion of statism, in which I kind of broke down how statism and religiosity are one and the same, and both are working synergistically to destroy your life. And I really hold kind of to that. The person that kind of introduced me, at least in part, to libertarianism was the guy who kind of, in part, introduced me to atheism. I already kind of knew the ideas, but not really. That was Penn Jillette. And, he kind of brought in the whole skepticism mindset to me. And that was something that I felt very passionately about. And so I became kind of an atheist and a libertarian at the same time.
You're a cool dude, man. I like that. I'm one of these people that I tell people, don't hold a belief that you're not willing to question. And yeah. I think that's what once you're willing to question your beliefs, that's when you start your adventure towards questioning everything. And I think too many people, they don't want to question everything because it's scary, so they put their head down in the sand and they say, I'm just going to live with what we got. As long as it doesn't bother me, I'm okay.
Yeah, but then you get like the radical nihilist skeptics, folks. And then if you take that to its consistency, it ends up becoming flat earth people. Those people are fucking crazy. How are they here? How does it get flat earthers? Like, can
you
someone
know,
explain this to me?
I thought they were kidding. Well, see, it's funny. I heard one of them on a episode. I guess it was a Berwick show a couple months back, which I
right.
expect, which I expect to hear on him. But I had actually come in contact with one 6 months before that through another website that I used to work for, and he was like, I thought he was joking at first, but no, he was flat out serious, and he has, they have all the evidence. I don't know how they exist. They are very. They're scary. They scare me. I don't know how else to put it.
There are 5 of them, and they're all fingering their mom. I think
I like to think that, but I've come across a few too many of them.
I like to think about flat earthers fingering their mom too. So,
new bumper. No,
Title of the show.
Here's what I do with the flat earthers, and I've ran in.
We got a lot of hits. I think this is gonna be a good show, guys.
That's nice clickbait right there.
This will be our top episode just for that alone.
No, I like to just let them have their own safe space. It's like, I'm not like, if flat Earth is a conspiracy, how the fuck have this many people been this quiet for so long? Like, we're going back to fucking Aristotle. How the fuck has this been a global conspiracy by some secret group to?
What about the NWO, bro? Yeah. Like it's whenever. I mean, there was actually, and I'm not the biggest Stephen Molyneux fan, but he did have a flat earther on his Sunday call-in show. Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah,
it was gorgeous.
It was
like the
beautiful.
guy just
I haven't listened to it yet.
It's so good. It's so good. Because at the end, the guy was like, well, it makes me comfortable knowing that we're special and that we're, in the eyes of the creator and that, put by some asteroids. And he goes, so you're believing it without evidence for comfort? He goes like, well, no, not exactly. I was like, okay, yeah.
I think there's always going to be people that believe crazy things no matter what. I mean, there's still people in the Amazon who have never seen a white man or a black man or a Mexican or anybody. They've only seen their tribe and what they believe and their traditions. And if you was to walk down there with a cell phone and be like, hey, watch this funny cat video, they'd probably kill you. So there's always going to be people with crazy beliefs in this world, no matter what anyone tries to do and no matter how you try to inform people. So I say let the flat earthers have their own little corner, as long as they don't want to force any beliefs, as long as they're not holding a gun to my head and saying, you're going to believe in this flat earth shit. I don't really care what they say or do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean,
but it's funny as fuck.
Well,
it is funny. The first time I heard it, I was like
every subculture is going to have its silly, like celebretarians and silly little things and everything. I mean, it's just always going to exist. Gossip will always exist. And it's just kind of a fun place, just kind of like dabble around thinking about. I think our Kardashians, though, let's think. Steph is up there. He's one of our celebretarians. Yeah. Chris Cantwell, to a certain point, I mean, he's entertaining. Kokesh is definitely there, and then they all have their like inner disputes. And it's cute, and they all think they're like celebrities. And it's great, but in reality, we're like, hit maybe 10,000 people? So, we're trying to get this message out here. We're all trying to do it our best ways. I'm certainly I'm not going to yell at anyone for being a Christian libertarian, but I will have the conversation with them to try and, so that I can educate myself better and the other person can educate themselves. I'm not under the notion of we need a big umbrella for everyone for liberty, because I'm not for collectivism. I'm for individual autonomy, critical thinking, and not, that doesn't mean you be a dick, but it also means you never pull punches, because if you pulled punches and you respect other people's beliefs rather than respecting the individual enough to tell them that their beliefs are bullshit, then you're not really going anywhere forward. You're just still, succumbing to the bullshit aspects of modernity, which are keeping
Hey, I say if there's a market for, I don't know, whatever you want to call religion, then so be it. You can't blame someone for getting into it.
Well,
yeah, I can. Because to blame someone for having a bad argument.
Well, exactly. I was gonna say, because that's the whole no Big Ten thing. I mean, I'm in agreement with that too. I mean, it's funny you said you don't have to be a dick. I mean, yeah, I try to as well as the NAP. I also try to follow the don't be a Richard policy too. But the D bar as I call it. But you don't with not only that you don't have to let everybody in, but you don't have to let everybody in because not everybody's opinions are valid. So that's the whole thing where you said, Dave, where you were saying about letting other people, let them have their beliefs. Yeah, but if they have beliefs that aren't valid and can end up negatively affecting the rest of us, then yeah, that's a problem and they should be spoken to. And again, as you could do it diplomatically. It seems to be, at least in my experiences, there seems to be a fine line there between being a dick and being honest, because a lot of people assume you're being a dick just because you're being honest. I get that a lot. I get told I'm an asshole.
It's funny to me though that religion is the one thing where people are like, we'll just let people hold their beliefs, but they'll argue for like 3 hours about which classic rock band is better, or like which specific song is better, and they'll fucking argue over vanilla or chocolate, or like the weirdest things, or which restaurant is better.
I just
when
think
it comes
that
to religion, respect other people's beliefs. It's like,
I think
why this is the biggest one? This
well,
is the
I
thing
think
that literally tells everything about the fucking universe, and this is the one where we're supposed to not say shit because we're supposed to teetle-toddle and not act like adults because we want to assume the other person is too much of a child to not be able to handle the idea of your beliefs are kind of bullshit. There's no God, and Jesus was just something that was made up.
Well, I think if you want to go about this life and make friends, it's best to not test their cognitive dissonance. Now, I don't really care. Oh, of course, I do it all day, but I think for the Lord.
Is that what you're trying to tell me here?
What now?
How many friends? Is that what you're trying to tell me here?
Oh no,
I don't want to test other people's cognitive.
I have friends and I test them daily. Trust me, I do. But I think for the large majority of people in most cultures across the planet, not testing other people's cognitive dissonance or their indoctrinated beliefs is preferred. And that's why you see people sit around and talk about the Kardashians or football or all this other shit. It's because it keeps them distracted from talking about real shit that we should be talking about. You sit down and you make a post on Facebook, hey, who wants to talk about football? You're going to have 80, 90 comments and back and forth about stupid shit that doesn't matter. But if you say, hey, who wants to talk about why government is illegitimate? It's crickets. So
right. here's the important thing. There's an important aspect here that we got to get accustomed to, which is football. It doesn't matter, right? But it's not bad that people decide to talk about it. Right, as long as it's not preventing them from being able to think wider on it. So it's kind of like when I get annoyed at during the Super Bowl. There was a Super Bowl among libertarians to who knows the least about sports. Like it's like, oh yeah, well, I don't even know the football game's on. Oh, fucking high five! I don't even know what football is. I don't know what pigs are. What is running? Like they seem to it becomes this ad absurdum thing. Everybody's trying to out hipster. Like we don't need to give people total shit for being into kind of silly things, because like, music-wise, I'm in really obscure music, and I don't think I'm better than someone else because of that. So undermining them for those reasons can hurt us. And yeah, and you're right. Like the more we decide to bring up some of these points, the more difficult it can be to have friends in these areas. But we can tease it out. And we can try our best. And I'm certainly not going to call out an anarchist who doesn't bring up with every single person anarchy, a bad person or someone without integrity, or if you don't defoo from all of them, you're a terrible human being. Some of us are going to have skills that are better than others. So we're all just trying to kind of figure out this way. So it's always that balancing, undermining the norms of their society while not making them feel like a piece of shit at the same time. And they'll tell you people who are the worst at this are fucking atheists on Reddit. Fucking beard. Oh, Jesus.
You want to leave politics alone, and you want to leave atheism and anarchism alone. All three of those subreddits are a pile of AIDS.
God.
There's literally nothing good about them. They're so controlled by the moderators and stuff that it's
have Matt Johnson up my asshole than being on Reddit for longer than 20 minutes.
I was gonna say Dave says that as he spends like hours, at least an hour or so a day on the damn thing.
Oh yeah, but I only go to certain. I only go to certain like gaming and all that Reddits, and I try to stay away from the politics because the amount of intellect that comes out of some of these political Reddits it's so lacking that there's not really words for it. Even in the anarcho-capitalist one, it's terrible.
Yeah. We should
But
probably wrap this up. Give our closing comments. But Carlos, thanks a lot for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's good to talk to you
I'm
again.
just really glad that I didn't have to talk about Child Protective Services the entire time. That means that I can actually focus on my RSS feed because I know that people listening to me are sick and fucking tired of hearing the foster home statistics, which I believe in, strong. But even me, like, this is just enjoyable to talk about AIDS. And
well, I've never been too shy to bring a show to a complete tangent. So,
that is. I definitely want to do this again in the future. Sorry that I'm traveling, so this. Yeah, I know. I'll have better audio next time. And again, if people are kind of interested in checking out my stuff, Libertarian Cast can be found at libertarian-atheist.com and on iTunes and Stitcher. And then my book, Legally Kidnapped: The Case Against Child Protective Services, can be found at legallykidnapped.net.
well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Sorry we had to do this over the phone. Sorry if you're listening to this and Carlos was breaking in and out, but he's a really cool dude. You should check out his podcast. You should check out everything he has written about the C.P.S. And you should be absolutely terrified that this shit is going on. It's ridiculous that the C.P.S. has quotas. That is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to agree with much of what Dave said. I mean, yes, I definitely appreciate you coming on, Carlos. I mean, the quality, whatever, getting you on is tough enough as it is. So the fact that you were able to give us this time tonight was awesome. And you're definitely welcome back. So, if you want to come back again, awesome. I can't recommend his book anymore either. I mean, I know we got away from talking about that and that made him happy, but just to mention it again, I actually,
I'm a fucking terrible promoter.
I read the book. I read the book when a while back, but I actually became, just going back to what the question Dave asked earlier about which agency if it scares you the most. That agency started scaring me the most the second I had kids. And it took over, and then I read your book and I was like, holy crap, I was fucking right to be scared of these people. Like, what the hell? And now, unfortunately, in some respects, I'm starting to have to fear dealing with it more.
Jeremy, don't worry about it. You have white privilege. Everything's going to be just fine.
I forgot. I'm a CSI, CIS.
I'm
a CSI white male. That's what it is. I don't even know the lingo. See how
you're a cis white male. You're going to be just fine.
But anyway,
I'd like to clear something up real quick, though, regarding what you just stated regarding being afraid of CPS afterwards. I would also like to point out that my book is not just an Alex Jones approach. The first section, yes, it brings up the facts about CPS and why they're a terrible organization. The second part is how to empower yourself against them and how to protect yourself from Child Protective Services, taking some of the precautions that are necessary. And at the end, my conclusion kind of talks about a final idea of how we should reflect on this, how CPS is a microcosm of the state. So I managed to talk about Child Protective Services to people who might not know anything about anarchism and show in a kind of a weird way that it's simply a microcosm of the innate nature of all governments and how to empower yourself with that. So that's
we should get your book translated into Ebonics and Spanglish ASAP.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate that clarification, and I should have been more clear. I just meant I was afraid for my own personal situation because I had made certain errors going against the recommendation, the stuff that you said to empower yourself. I was doing the exact opposite before that. So I just started thinking, and plus even before we started this podcast, I've been a very outspoken individual, and I've been constantly battling the legal system in different ways here in New York, just because I want somebody to be fighting them on a constant basis. So I've made myself a target on a local level. So just the fear of knowing that they're out there, and knowing that I have kids, and I don't like to stay quiet, scares me. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Your book definitely does takes away some of those fears for anybody who's not as insane as I am. So yes, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that.
Carlos Morales, helping insane people across America.
Exactly. There you go. That may be our show title right there. But once again, thank you very much for coming on. This was great. I really appreciate it. And we'll post links. Everything will be in the show notes. And and also definitely check out his podcast too, because it's actually it's bumped up my list quickly ever since I found it. I try, it's definitely.
I'll have to add it to my RSS.
Top three or four that I listen to every time it comes out. So check out the Libertarian podcast.
All right.
Yes, awesome. Thanks a lot, Carlos. So, this is so if you want to help our show, Bitcoin Patreon, We accept donations. I don't know if Carlos has any ways. Carlos, still there?
Yeah,
all right,
still
so,
here. I just buy the damn book. I'm not asking for anyone else for fucking donations.
All right.
Buy the physical form of a book. It's actual physical labor of love. If these guys are asking for donations, give it to them because they allowed me on their show. But yeah.
Really appreciate it.
All right, folks.
So talk to you later. So if you want to help out our show, like, comment, share, subscribe, and you can help us out, help us spread the word of volunteerism and anarchy. So thanks.
I wanted to shout out another podcast before we get off.
All right.
I wanted to shout out a podcast called Bring Your Own Anarchy. Search it up, look them up. They're really cool dudes. They're kind of brutal, but I like it. So go and check them out.
All right.
Bring Your Own Anarchy. All right. So so I think that's going to be it for this episode. Thanks a lot, everyone, for listening. This is the Seeds of Liberty podcast. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care.
Google voluntarism.